I want you to take a second and to close your eyes. Picture the age of disruption.
Okay.
You're probably imagining, what, a guy in a hoodie sitting in some glass-walled co-working space in Jakarta, maybe Silicon Valley.
Right, frantically coding an app while sipping an oat milk latte.
Exactly. That's the standard image, isn't it? Disruption belongs to the city. It belongs to the tech bros.
That is certainly the stereotype we're all fed. We tend to think innovation has a specific zip code.
Yeah. But what if I told you that the real front line of digital disruption isn't in a skyscraper at all? It's in the village.
Okay.
And the person at the desk isn't running a tech unicorn. They're just trying to run the local village economy.
It sounds like a contradiction in terms. Rural and disruption. I mean, they feel like they belong in different centuries, let alone the same sentence.
But that collision is exactly where things get interesting. And that collision is where we are living today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating piece of research that looks at what happens when the digital wave crashes into, well, the shore of the Indonesian village. We're talking about the transformation of BUMDes.
BUMDes, Badan Usaha Milik Desa. Or, for our international listeners, you can think of them as village-owned enterprises.
These are the engines that are supposed to drive the rural economy. But here's the tension, and it's the core of our deep dive today. Are the people running these engines actually ready?
I mean, can they make that switch from being just local administrators pushing paper to becoming true digital entrepreneurs?
That is the billion rupiah question, and we're looking at a paper published in 2025 in the International Journal of Economics, Business, and Accounting Research. It's called Transformation of BMD's Human Resources.
And we have to give credit to the research team here.
Absolutely. This comes from Jumardi, Jason Agustinus Priyoga Utomo, and Efan James William Chendry, working alongside Mona Lisa and F. Rizal Furman.
And I have to say, what Jamardi, Jason, and Afan did here is it's really refreshing. Because often when we talk about rural development, you get a lot of anecdotes.
Oh, yeah, like this village did well, that one struggled.
Exactly. But these guys went for the hard math. They used a quantitative approach to try and crack the code on human capital.
They wanted to know what statistically drives readiness for change. And I'll give you a spoiler. The answer completely blew my mind.
Oh, it did.
It contradicts almost everything we're usually told about motivation and, management.
It certainly puts a dent in the conventional wisdom of business schools. It challenges that whole idea that if you just want it enough, you can achieve it.
So here's our mission today. We are going to figure out what actually matters when you're trying to modernize an economy from the grassroots up. Is it having a degree? Is it having that fire in the belly, the motivation? Or is it something else entirely?
To get there, though, we have to set the stage. We need to understand what a BMDs actually is and why they're struggling right now. Because on paper, they sound like a fantastic idea.
Right. They're legally independent entities, established by the village, managed by the village, and the goal is sort of twofold: make money and provide social benefits. It's like capitalism with a conscience.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
But Jumardi and his team, they identify this massive problem right in the introduction of their paper. The Indonesian government has been pouring support in funds, regulations, infrastructure, but a lot of these BMDs are just stuck. They're not growing.
Stuck how? Like, are they losing money?
It's more that they're stuck in a mindset. The authors call it conventional administrative approaches.
Okay.
Think about the difference between a bureaucrat and an entrepreneur. A bureaucrat focuses on compliance. They want to fill out the forms, keep the ledger balanced, and just make sure they don't get in trouble.
Whereas an entrepreneur, they're focused on growth, markets, innovation. They're willing to break a few things to move forward.
Precisely. And the authors bring in Christensen's theory of disruption here. We are in an era of market volatility, massive technological shifts. If you're just managing the books while the market is changing how people buy everything,
You're going to fail.
you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You can't just be a manager anymore. You have to be a rural entrepreneur.
So Jamardi, Jason, and Ifan, they set out to answer three specific questions. One, who are these people currently running the show?
Right.
Two, what factors actually help them transform? And three, and this is the big one, is it managerial knowledge, motivation, or is it digital skills that moves the needle?
And to answer that, they surveyed 40 BMDes administrators, directors, treasurers, secretaries, the actual decision makers.
So let's look at the demographics first, because this was my first big surprise. When I picture a village administrator, I'll be honest, I have a bias.
Okay.
I picture an older guy, maybe a retired civil servant, the whole village elder archetype, maybe wearing a batik shirt, sipping tea, taking it slow.
Someone kind of set in their ways.
Exactly. But I was looking at the charts in the paper, and that is not who is running these things at all.
No, the data paints a completely different picture. The dominant group, we're talking 40% of them, are aged 25 to 34.
Wow.
And another 25% are under 25.
So, do the math. Nearly 2/3 of this workforce is under 35. This is a Gen Z and millennial workforce.
It is. It's a very young, productive age,
Yeah.
as the authors put it. And they aren't uneducated either. That's another myth the data busts.
Yeah, that education chart, 55% hold a bachelor's degree, an S1. Another 30% have a senior high school education. And get this, 0% had only an elementary education.
So just pause and think about that profile. Young, highly educated. On paper, that sounds like a dream team for digital transformation, doesn't it?
It totally does. These are people who grew up with the internet. They know what a smartphone is.
That's what I thought. I thought, okay, problem solved. We have the youth. But then you hit that third data point, experience.
Ah, the twist.
It is a huge twist.
60% of these administrators have less than 1 year of work experience.
Less than 1 year. And only 10% have been doing it for more than 8 years.
So we have a workforce that is smart, they've got the degrees, they have the energy of youth, but they are incredibly green. I mean, they've barely settled into their chairs.
And that lack of experience is the crucial context for this entire study. If you have 20 years of business experience, you have intuition. You've seen economic cycles. You know how to handle a crisis because you've survived one.
Right.
These guys, they're flying on instruments. They are relying entirely on their immediate skills and attributes.
Which makes this question of readiness so much more urgent. They don't have a decade of leeway to figure things out. So, okay, let's get into the experiment. Jamarty, Jason, and Efan tested 3 main variables to see if they caused transformation readiness.
Let's define them clearly so you can play along at home and guess the winner.
I like it.
Variable 1, digital skills. This covers literacy, using software, problem solving with tech. Basically, can you navigate the tools? Variable 2, managerial knowledge. This is your classic business school curriculum. Planning, organizing, actuating, controlling, financial management, the textbook stuff.
Yeah.
And variable 3, innovation motivation. That internal psychological drive to adopt new ideas and improve.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate here. If I'm hiring someone to run a business, even a village one, I'm looking at managerial knowledge first. You have to know how to run a P&L.
Sure.
Or maybe motivation, right? Because if you don't want to change, you won't. Digital skills. I feel like I can just hire a kid to do the Instagram, you know?
That is a very reasonable assumption. It aligns perfectly with traditional HR thinking. You hire for attitude, the motivation and aptitude, the management, and you just train for the skills.
Right, that's the standard playbook.
Well, according to this study, that playbook is completely wrong for this specific environment.
I have a feeling I'm about to lose this bet. What did the PLS-SE analysis show?
Just a quick side note on PLS-SEM. It's partial least squares structural equation modeling. It sounds like a mouthful.
It does.
But it's a really powerful statistical tool. It lets researchers like Jamarty and his team see these cause and effect relationships, even with smaller sample sizes. It gives us a path coefficient, which is basically how strong is the connection.
Okay, so let's look at the connections. Let's start with the one I thought was most important. Managerial knowledge.
The result was, well, it's statistically insignificant.
Insignificant. You mean knowing how to organize a business plan didn't make them ready for the future?
In the context of the age of disruption, precisely. The path coefficient was 0.165 with a p-value of 0.323.
So basically noise.
It's just noise.
Yeah.
In the world of statistics, anything over 0.05 is usually considered that. There was no meaningful relationship. Knowing how to manage didn't translate to being ready to transform.
That is a shocker. It
Yeah.
basically says the textbook knowledge is failing them. Oh my God, surely motivation fared better. You have a young workforce, they must be eager.
Innovation, motivation, also insignificant.
No way.
The p-value was 0.329, even weaker than managerial knowledge. And the authors suggest a really interesting, almost philosophical reason for this.
Go on.
They argue that motivation without capability is essentially useless.
It's the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak scenario.
Or maybe The spirit is willing, but the fingers don't know which buttons to click. You can want to innovate all day long. You can wake up every morning saying, I'm going to disrupt the village economy.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the technical mechanism to execute that idea, the motivation just evaporates. It doesn't lead to readiness. It leads to frustration.
That makes so much sense. You can be the most motivated driver in the world, but if you don't know how to drive a stick shift and that's the only car available, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. So that leaves us with the last contender, digital skills.
Moment of truth.
It was the clear, undisputed winner. The path coefficient was a massive 0.580 with a significance level of 0.000. It was the only significant factor in the entire model.
And 0.580 is a really strong correlation in social sciences, isn't it?
It's huge. It suggests that improving digital skills directly and powerfully pushes readiness up. If you have the tech skills, you are ready. If you don't, nothing else matters. Not your degree, not your motivation, not your management theory.
This is really radical if you sit with it for a minute. It's flipping the whole hierarchy of needs. It's basically saying that for these rural enterprises in 2025, digital literacy isn't a nice to have.
No.
It's the gateway. It's the prerequisite for entry.
It is the bottleneck. And Gimardi, Jason, and Evan confirmed this with their R-square value. Their model explains 71.5% of the variance in readiness.
So it's a strong predictive model.
Very strong. They are
Yeah.
very confident that this isn't a fluke.
I want to try to synthesize what the authors are telling us here. They're saying that in this specific environment, rural Indonesia facing digital disruption, these traditional assets are becoming what an economist might call stranded assets.
That is a perfect analogy. Imagine you have that bachelor's degree in management, which 55% of these folks do. You know the theory of supply chains. But the supply chain is now digital. The customers are on social media. Payments are via QR codes. Inventory is managed in the cloud. If you cannot operate the digital interface, your management degree is stranded. You can't apply it.
It's like having a driver's license but no car.
Exactly. And this explains that experience gap we talked about. These young administrators don't have the experience to navigate around the technology. They must go through it.
And the motivation part really gets me. We see this in corporate culture all the time, the endless motivational seminars. You just need to believe in yourself. You need an innovative mindset.
In this data, it just says, stop telling them to be motivated and teach them how to use the software.
It's blunt, but maybe that's what we need.
It reminds me of that saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Well, in this case, don't bring pure motivation to a digital platform fight. But here is where the tragedy lies in the data. The authors found this massive disconnect between what works and what is actually happening.
What do you mean by that?
They found that despite digital skills being the only thing that mattered for success, only 30% of the respondents had received any technology-based business training in the last 2 years.
Only 30%. So 70% are flying blind on the one skill that actually determines their survival.
Correct. They're likely getting general management training, how to file reports, how to hold meetings, or maybe those motivational seminars we were just joking about.
Things that have a small effect.
Things that, according to the F-square analysis in the paper, have a small effect size. Meanwhile, the thing with the large effect size digital skills is being neglected.
This feels like a massive wake-up call for policymakers. The government is spending money, but are they spending it on the right things?
That is the implication. And Gimardi and his colleagues are quite direct about what needs to happen. They are calling for a shift from the local manager mindset to the rural entrepreneur mindset. And you don't get there by teaching them how to be better bureaucrats.
So if I'm a policymaker listening to this, or a village head, what do I do tomorrow? I mean, how do we bridge this gap?
First, you have to pivot the training curriculum. The paper advocates for structured digital training. But be careful. It's not just introduction to computers.
Right, these are 25-year-olds. They know how to use a phone.
Exactly. They are digital natives, but that doesn't make them digital entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between scrolling TikTok and running a digital marketing campaign.
Yeah.
There's a difference between buying something online and setting up a secure e-commerce gateway for village crafts.
That distinction is so key. We assume because they're young, they just know this stuff. But consumer skills are not producer skills.
Precisely. So the training needs to be specific. E-commerce access, digital service connectivity, digital financial literacy, and the authors emphasize mentoring. Not just a one-off class, but ongoing guidance. Because technology changes every 6 months.
The authors also touch on the social entrepreneurship aspect. I think this is important because BUMDes aren't just regular companies. They're supposed to have a heart.
They do. But here's the connection. To achieve social impact in 2025 and beyond, you need that digital reach. If a village artisan makes incredible crafts, but the BOMDs can't connect them to a global market via e-commerce, the social impact is limited to the village radius.
So digital skills act as the amplifier for the social mission.
It's the difference between selling to your neighbor and selling to the world. And the authors argue this can't be done in isolation. They talk about building a digital ecosystem.
Which means
It means collaboration. Local government, development actors, private sector tech companies. You can't just throw a laptop at the village office and hope for the best. You need the infrastructure, the reliable internet, the platform partnerships, and the policy support to make it all work.
it's really interesting to look back at the demographics now. We have these young, educated people. They are primed for this. They're the perfect vessel for this knowledge.
Yes.
They just need the right software, literally and metaphorically installed.
You could argue that the age of disruption is actually a huge opportunity for this specific demographic. Because they are young, they have a higher baseline of digital fluency than the previous generation. They don't have to unlearn bad habits. They just need to be shown how to weaponize that fluency for business.
Weaponize fluency. I like
Yeah.
that. It's about taking potential and turning it into kinetic energy.
And that's what this paper proves statistically. The readiness isn't innate. It is a skill set that must be acquired. And it's a very specific skill set.
So bringing it all back to Jamarty, Jason, and Efane's work, they've really handed us a roadmap. We have the workforce, young, smart, eager, but they are inexperienced. And to make them resilient, we have to stop treating management knowledge as the holy grail and start treating digital skills as the foundation.
It's a hierarchy of needs for the modern age. Digital capability is the shelter and food. Management theory is the self-actualization. You can't have the latter without the former.
I love that. Digital capability is the shelter.
And, this raises a really provocative thought for me, looking at the bigger picture beyond just Indonesia.
What's that?
If this study holds true, that for grassroots entrepreneurs, managerial knowledge has no significant impact on readiness, what does that say about business education globally?
Oh, that's a spicy take. Go on.
We spend years teaching people the theories of management, organizational behavior, hierarchy, and MBA programs. But in the face of rapid digital disruption, is the traditional business curriculum becoming obsolete for the people actually building the economy from the ground up?
That is a heavy question. If knowing how to manage matters less than knowing how to use the tools, are we teaching the wrong things entirely?
It certainly suggests that for the rural entrepreneur, or maybe any entrepreneur starting today, a coding bootcamp, a Shopify masterclass, or a course on AI prompting might be infinitely more valuable than a semester of Management 101,
The tools matter more than the theory.
at least until the business gets big enough to need the theory. But just to get off the ground, the data says, get digital.
Something to mull over, definitely. So, to you listening right now, think about your own readiness. Whether you're in a village in Java or a city in Europe, are you relying on your motivation and your 5-year plan? Or do you actually have the hard digital skills to execute in a world that changes every single day?
Because as Jamarty, Jason, and Afon showed us, the numbers don't lie.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, keep learning.